Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the next video in our Dungeon Guide series. Today we're going to be looking at Plaguefall. Now, Plaguefall is one of those dungeons which can be done extremely quickly. You've probably seen 2 chests of the highest keys done on a Plaguefall alongside Necrotic Wakes. Given the fact that you can use a lot of little tricks in this dungeon in order to speed things up really quick. Now, there are a lot of places that you can screw up if you do these things wrong, but in order to get them done correctly, which I'll show you in the video coming up, you just need to make sure that everything is managed properly and you're working cohesively as a 5-man group so things get done quite smoothly. Once again, if you have any questions or you have any suggestions for the new videos coming up, please make sure you chuck them down in the comment section below. But let's just get started into the video. So we're going to go over a Plaguefall today. Right now, obviously the comp is a little bit weird, but all you need to know starting off right off the bat is that there are a lot of diseases and poisons that you need to get rid of in this dungeon, which doesn't mean you necessarily need someone that can remove diseases and poisons, as you can just run away and time them out, but it does make it a lot easier if you have something that can remove diseases and poisons. The classes that can do this are paladins, priests, and monks. Those are the 3 that you're looking for. You need to try and make sure you have one of those in your group if possible, and that will just help smooth things along, especially for the tank, and you'll see why in a few minutes. We're going to start off with the key. It is a 21 on a bursting fortified storming week. Now, right off the bat, we're going to walk over here, and you're going to see there's a bunch of mobs here. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is skip all of this. There is no need to do any of these mobs. I personally don't think any of these mobs are worth your time. There are too many things you need to deal with, and the percentage is not worth it, especially for this route specifically. If you want to try and do these mobs and you don't want to invis skip these, you don't have to, but this is just the way I do it, so we're just looking at the way I usually do it. You can, since changes happened in the last patch, you can actually just walk through the middle of this area without invis potting if you're quick enough, since the giant on the left hand side pats a little differently nowadays. But I wouldn't risk it personally, and I would just use an invis belt or an invis pot. So we're going to go over here, we're going to use an invis pot to go through, as is everybody else. I think someone doesn't use an invis pot and ends up dying and we have to res them. I'm not too sure, but I think everyone makes it here. So as we're going through, yeah, it seems like everyone's okay. Now, seeing as this is a bursting week, you've got 2 options here for a bursting week. You can either pull them half-half and deal with it, in that sense, or since we have a monk and a lot of us have immunities or things that can reduce the amount of damage you take from bursting, such as 2 darknesses from the DHs, a turtle from the hunter, an AMS myself, and we have a revival from the Mistweaver monk. We can kind of just pull everything, kill them all at the same time, and we should be okay. So as we go into the pull, I'm just going to run in, pull everything at the same time, and then we're just going to try and make sure that everything dies. Now, the most important thing about bursting weeks is that you make sure everything dies at the same time. Otherwise, if you keep rolling stacks, it's just going to be that much more difficult for the healer to keep everyone up, since the stack will reset and increase by 1 every time you kill something. Now, as you see, we use a revival there, removes all the stacks. If you didn't know, revival does remove bursting stacks. And we're just going to chain pull that into the Plague Belcher. Now, with the Plague Belcher, you're only going to pull the 1 here. There's 2 of them that pat on either side of the boss platform. You need to make sure you're only pulling this one here, and you're slowly cutting it down the route down to the next area, just so those slimy morsels don't hit the mob. Now, these morsels will act the same way as they do on the first boss, which is Globgrog. If any of the slimes end up reaching the mob, they will slowly heal it. Over time, they will heal it little by little, each morsel that it goes onto the mob. So you never want that. Otherwise, for this mob in particular, it does grow in power as well. So we're going to pull these 4. We're going to wait for the Spine Breaker to pat next to the Slime Claw. Now, you don't need to use these canisters here. As you can see, there's a bunch of canisters around this area. There's not really any need to make sure these mobs are stacked on it, since the canisters only do the same amount of damage that it would provide on a Mythic 0. So the higher the key, the less it's going to be impactful, because it's not really going to do that much damage. So if you do need to move the mobs away, you don't really, you can, so you don't really need to make sure that they're in there. So the main thing here is you can see all of them are casting an ability. Now, the Slime Claws are going to be casting something called Corroded Claw, which is going to be an ability that is going to be put on the nearest target. Right now, it should be me as the tank. Now, the Corroded Claw is going to put a debuff on me, which is one of the things that needs to be dispelled from you, which is going to be from our monk here. And it reduces your maximum health by quite a substantial amount per stack, which at the end of the day, if you get a certain amount of stacks, you're just going to have about 30-40k health, and you're just going to get one-shot by anything. The Festering Belch is also from the Blighted Spine Breaker, which is a frontal that faces where the tank faces the mob, so just make sure you're facing it away from everyone else, and make sure they're aware of that as well. So we're going to have that frontal, you just move to the side. All of those are going to be on me. As you can see, the stacks are on me there. I get dispelled. Perfect. It's also going to spawn these swirls on the ground. This is from the Spine Breaker. The Spine Breaker is going to cast Jagged Spines. Just don't be in the swirl. They're going to erupt, knock people up, and probably one-shot the DPS and the healer if they stand in it. Very, very easy things to dodge. Now, once the Slime Claws get to a certain percentage, they're going to start running away. This is where you want to put your Ring of Pieces, your binding shots, any kind of slows. I try to make sure I have a Death and Decay down, since I'm running the slow talent, to make sure they don't run away and grab other mobs, because if they reach another mob, they are going to run and get the mob. As you can see, one of our DHs have actually stood into the spine, and they end up dying. Now, you want to be very careful here, because any time you release, up until the second boss, you will release and spawn back at the start of the instance. Unless you can make it back yourself, do not release unless told so by someone. Otherwise, wait for people to kill these mobs and then get rezzed up, because otherwise you're just going to be wasting people's time. Now, when the Spine Breakers die, they end up summoning 5 Slithering Oozes that slowly cast Metamorphosis. Now, if they finish the cast, they're going to turn into blobs, which will be the mobs that we pull after the first boss, which I'll bring up later on, and they're going to start casting something called Corrosive Gunk, which if you are in melee range, it will put a debuff on you that ticks really hard and it stacks. All you need to do is move out of melee range as it's casting, and when it finishes casting, move back into melee range after a second or two, because it does linger a little bit afterwards, so you need to make sure you're not going too quickly. And if it keeps stacking, if there's too many people with stacks, the healer won't be able to keep up, since you only have 1 Dispel. Otherwise, in this case with a Mistweaver Monk, you can use Revival in a specific circumstance to get rid of everyone's stacks, but that's a very long cooldown that you want to be using for something else. So, with those Metamorphosis mobs, all you have to do is run over them. Now, it does do a massive chunk of damage, so you either want to use a defensive while running over those mobs to prevent them from turning into slimes, or you just let your tank do it, and your tank can pretty much survive getting over all 5 of them. So we're going to kill off the rest of the mobs, wait for the bursting to go off, and then our healer is going to res our DH. Now, as you can see, a trap just went down. That will be for later. I'll explain why that trap was set. We're going to pull the Plague Rot with these pack of mobs here as well. Now, in here, the only difference is we've got a Plague Binder and a Plague Rock. The Plague Rock's going to do Blight Beak, which is going to be the same kind of debuff that the Corroded Claws do. Reduces your HP. And also, the Plague Binder is going to do Pestilence Bolt and also a Root ability, which is called Gripping Infection. Now, you need to make sure you interrupt the Gripping Infection, the Root, otherwise it's going to root someone in place, and if they get targeted by something, they can't move, like the Urslam, or in another pull later on, like the Spine Breaker's spines from the ground. You need to make sure that is a interrupted ability. Now, we get here to reset some of our cooldowns before we start going to the first boss, and there's the first big trick in here is pulling the red slime in this area to the first boss area. Now you're going to be doing the same thing with the slimes at the end of the dungeon to the last boss. Now I get asked this question a lot. Why do you pull the red slime to the first boss? Because the haste buff that you get double dips if you stand in the remnants of the red slime. Yes, you do take ticking damage, but you do get extra haste, not only from the buff if you're a Necrolord, but also from the buff if you're standing in it. So if your healer can deal with the amount of damage that's coming out, it is very beneficial to have that on the first boss and on the last boss. Now, another personal tip, make sure you have a Necrolord in this dungeon. It is very beneficial to have not only the haste buff from the red slimes, but you can also get the defensive capabilities of the purple congealed slimes, which is very helpful for certain bosses and certain packs. So I'm going to kill that pack. Now, as you can see, our hunter has CC'd the pestilent slime. The reason why is because we don't want to kill it here. We want to be making sure we kill it near the first boss. So we're going to grab these two plague borers. Now, a very big tip here, which I like to tell tanks, especially DKs, warriors, and paladins, is that you can actually avoid Wretched Plague quite easily here. Now, Wretched Plague, or Wretched Phlegm, I forgot which one it was called, from the Plague Borers, it does a lot of damage at a high key level, and you want to make sure you're mitigating it as much as possible. Now, essentially it is a slow, so you can, as a DK, use AMS because it blocks the magic damage. As a warrior, you can Spell Reflect, and as a paladin, you can actually pre-freedom yourself. And freedom, since it stops all slows, will completely negate any damage from the Wretched Plague. So if you're a Holy Paladin or a Ret Paladin in this key, and your tank is about to get targeted by Wretched Plague, Wretched Phlegm, I'm so sorry I saw the PH just then. If your tank's gonna get targeted by Wretched Phlegm, use a Hand of Freedom on them. It'll negate the damage, and it'll probably keep your tank alive, because having these Plague Borers, especially in the pack down there on the right hand side with a bunch of other things that we pull, it's really helpful in the long run when you're getting targeted by these things. And you're going to encounter these Plague Borers throughout the entire dungeon, so make sure you do use them. Now, at this point, I don't use my AMS. I'm playing very chill in this key, just not utilizing things like I should be, which is not a great example in a guide, but I'm explaining what you should be doing. So the Pestilent Slime is still going to be CC'd. We're going to wait until they get a bit low, and then we can bring in the slime. Now it's going to cast this ability called Viral Globs. Now you need to make sure you keep interrupting it, otherwise it won't move anywhere. So you need to have people on an interrupt rotation, so you can keep moving it to the boss. Now, I'm a DK, I can Death Grip as well, which is very helpful. We have a Ring of Peace from our monk as well, so if we don't have a interrupt in the rotation, as of yet, we can just help move it along a little bit more. So, we're going to keep on moving here. It's going to go all the way to the boss, and we're going to place it just about where I am now. Now, the reason why you don't want to place it too close to the edges is because the big slimes from the boss spawn near the edges, and if you have any sort of classes, for example like a DH, which has a lot of AoE capabilities, and Immolation Aura, Death Sweep, Glaives and all that stuff, it's gonna probably cleave onto the big slimes and pull them out of CC, which you're trying to do in this boss, because you don't want to have to kill the big slimes. And it's gonna be a little annoying when you're in the middle of the boss fight. So, as always, kill that. Now he's going to see a red pool on the ground. Now, making sure that when that red pool goes, your Necrolord is using its Fleshcraft ability to be able to get the buff, as well as dipping into the red slime remnants in order to double up on the haste buff. Now we're going to pull the boss. We're going to pop our Lust here, or our Heroism, making sure we get and I'm just going to pull the boss pretty much so everyone can dip into the red. I'm going to AMZ to remove as much healing needed from the healer, so then the healer can focus on doing damage as well, because this is the best time to pump damage. There's nothing else going on, it's just the boss and you. So now the Beck and Slime's going to come out. We're going to have our Hunter CC the first big slime. As you can see, the trap's already up at the top. You want to make sure these big slimes are completely CC'd the entirety of the fight. You need to make sure you have a bunch of people that can CC. Now, the only people that can CC these efficiently in our group at the moment is our Hunter and our Monk. Paralysis and Freezing Trap are the only ones, or Frost Trap are the only ones that can do the proper CCs. You cannot CC as a DH. If you're a Warlock, you can use Banish. If you're a Paladin, you can use Turn Evil. Little things there for Paladins and Warlocks. Paladin is extremely good in Plaguefall, so if you play a Paladin, good on ya, because you are very, very impactful in this dungeon specifically. So we're going to have those small slimes, like I said before, the morsels that were on the Plague Borer previously on this platform. Now you need to make sure you're very, very careful about your positioning here when the Plague Stomp comes out. Because the Stomp knocks you back, you don't want to be in a position where you're going to get knocked into the CC'd mobs, and you'd want to be in a position that you're not getting knocked into the other Plague Borer that we didn't kill on the platform up on the left-hand side. Now, when the morsels come in, I'm going to ask my healer to use a Ring of Peace so it doesn't hit the boss, and I'm going to ask everyone else to cleave off the boss onto the morsels. So then we get maximum damage output on the boss, as well as getting the morsels killed before they hit the boss. Plague Stop's going to come up. I'm going to use AMS to remove to prevent the disease on me, and use a Death's Advance to stay still as well. You want to double up on those as well as a DK if you're tanking this every single time. You should be able to do it both times it happens, purely because you have it the first time, you'll have an dead, and then your cooldowns will reset for the second time. Now, Slime Wave is just, you want to dodge the frontal. It's a massive frontal, you can see it, it takes so long, and that's pretty much the boss. You've got the frontal that you need to dodge, CC the big ad, kill the small ads, and make sure that you're not facing your back towards the other ad or the CC ads when the boss does the stomp and knocks you back. That's pretty much the fight. Very simple tank and spank first boss. Now we're going to go down to the right hand side. We're going to pull these mobs here as well as the Rot Marrow Slimes. Now these slimes need to be purged. These are the same slimes that were on the first pull of 20 slimes in the first boss room. If they do not get purged by a Blood Elf, Arcane Torrent, or singular purges from Hunters, Shamans, and DHs, they will drop a massive pool of green poison on the ground, which ticks for a lot of damage. So you need to make sure that you're doing that properly, and that is priority. These slimes will also cast that corrosive gunk that I talked about before. If you're in melee, be careful, run out before it cast goes off, and then run in a second or two later to avoid the disease being applied to you, because it does it on an AoE scale. Plague Borers are in here as well. You got 2 of those. Remember, Pallies use your Freedom, DKs use your AMS, and Warriors use your Spell Reflex. And then you've also got a Plague Binder, which you need to interrupt the gripping infection so someone doesn't get rooted. You want to get here again. This is quite of a nasty pull in a higher key, so you want to make sure everything is done. You can work on your AoE CCs. As you can see, we have a leg sweep there. Now, if you want to make sure that all the corrosive gunks are synced up in the time that they actually use their ability, you need to make sure that you're AoE stunning, and then they will all cast at the same time. That's a little tip there. If you all want to have a DPS or a interrupt rotation with your group, if you're in Discord or something, so then you can all interrupt separate mobs in order for you guys to stay in melee for longer. So you have a leg sweep there. They all start casting at the same time. We're going to have a DH AoE as well, and now it's just every man for themselves pretty much. Now this is really annoying because there's storming coming up as well. And if you accidentally get hit by storming in that scenario, it is not a good time, because you might get hit by Slam, you might get hit by a bunch of corrosives that you want to try and avoid. But we end up doing that quite easily, which is fine. Now this pack is really annoying because it's just 2 mobs. You never want to only pull 2 mobs if you can. You always want to be pulling big packs or trying to utilize people's cooldowns. 2 mobs is never good for anyone's cooldown. So at this point, you just want to get the Congealed Slime and the Plague Binder. So what the Congealed Slime does is puts an area of effect buff on everything but other slimes. So if you're pulling anything but another slime with a Congealed, it's going to get its damage reduced by a significant amount. I think it's about 90% to 99%. So make sure you're targeting the Congealed Slime first. Now we're killing the Congealed Slime. As you can see, it's targeted with a skull marker. Now Congealed is going to start casting an ability called Withering Filth. Now, this ability will jump to a player, do an area of effect ground, like stomp kind of thing, and it will put a debuff on people and almost one-shot anyone in that vicinity. So the only way to stop this is just stun it. If you see this cast go off, just stun it. If you don't have a stun for some reason, everyone's spread out so it hits one person rather than jumping and double dipping on other people. So as you can see, we get me stunning it and our hunter uses intimidation to stun it. So I'm going to kill the congealed slime. The plague binder is barely taking any damage even with some cleave. And then we're going to pull the plague binder into the next pack as well. Because you don't want to just sit there and you don't want to sit there and just kill one mob, sorry. So now we have all of these mobs together. There's 5 slime claws in total, a plague binder now, or sorry, 4 slime claws, 2 plague binders, and a spine breaker. Now the slime claws are the ones that do the corroded claw on the nearest target. Make sure the tank's the nearest target, which is the reducing health. We've got the spine breaker with the frontal and the things coming up from the ground, which is the spines. So you make sure that the mobs are facing away from the group. And we have the gripping inferno going off from the plague binder that grips and roots a player. So make sure that's getting interrupted. Now again, this is a very annoying pull purely for the fact that if these slime claws get low and you don't have anything to stop them from running away, they're going to just start coming around and pulling mobs left, front, and center to you. So you need to make sure they're either all dying at the same time, or you have something to stop them and prevent them from going up the stairs and pulling more mobs, or going down the stairs and pulling more mobs. Now as you can see, one of our DHs died to the ground mechanic, and then one of our DHs just stood on the stairs and died to the frontal. You will get one shot if you don't watch yourself. So that is a perfect example of what not to do, but a good example to show you of what can go wrong in this pull. Now, again, this is just the 21. We are quite overgeared for this, and we do know what we're doing, so it's not too bad. Now, I try to prevent this slime claw from going up with a grip, and then we have our monk dealing with that slime claw over there. Making sure you're moving out of the frontal as always. Now, the most annoying part here, and I've seen this happen a lot of times, there's another 3-pack of slimes up there. If these slime claws go and pull those 3 slimes, it's a little rough, so just be a bit careful with that. Now, this is pretty bad by me. I'm slowly facing that spine breaker in a weird position, not up the stairs anymore, but I needed to grip that slime claw there. If you saw how close that got to actually grabbing those other slimes, that would have been very, very, very rough since we have 2 DPS dead already. So I got hit by a storming. At that point, I should have used Death's Advance. I did have it up because Death's Advance walks through stormings. You don't have to worry about getting knocked up. I got hit by the frontal anyway, but I survived. I'm a tank. Tanks can just soak damage. It's a perk of being a tank. You can soak a lot of damage that otherwise would kill every other player. So we end up getting all this. The pull was extremely messy, but we ended up doing it successfully regardless. We're just waiting for the monk to res everybody, and then we're going to go into the next pull. Now, this is the start of the gauntlet. Now, once you get past this area here, this middle part above the stairs, once you get past this imaginary line here where the slime claws are, the gauntlet will start. Now, when the gauntlet starts, it's going to summon a total of 4 packs of 2 plague borers. Now, these plague borers are going to be a little different. They're still going to cast that wretched phlegm on you as a tank, but they're also going to explode after a while, dealing massive amounts of damage to not only you, but to mobs around them. And I think it's a 5 target limit on every plague borer that spawns. So, this is where you want to speed up the dungeon. You're going to utilize those plague borers to absolutely destroy the next few mobs. So we're going to grab these 2 slime claws on the left. We're going to pull these down right quick. Now, as you can see, the corroded claws are going off. We have a DH that's near it. Because it's the nearest target, it's going to apply that debuff to the DH instead of me. We're going to grab these 2 plague borers there. They're going to come inside. We're going to make sure these plague borers are on top of these mobs here, including this first tentacle. Now, all this tentacle is going to do an ability called Crushing Embrace, which is going to grab a random player. As you can see, this one's going to be the DH, and it's going to stun it and hold it. It's not going to stun it, sorry, it's just going to grab it and it's going to keep it in the air. If these plague borers go off and the person is in that tentacle, they are most likely going to die because it'll hit everything in its vicinity. So you need to make sure you stun it immediately so that person can leave. Now the slime claw's going to die. As you can see, the tentacle dies as well very quick. This is the part I was talking about, that you get a lot of time saved if you do this correctly, but you need to be quick with it. So the next plague borer is going to be on this tentacle. It's just going to use these two on this one tentacle here. Now there's no point popping your cooldowns and smashing through and all that on these mobs. Like, they're going to die anyway, so you don't have to. Now as you can see, I didn't see that area of effect was even in that area under my foot, because it got merged with the water around here. So I got hit by two of them. As you can see, I've got 2 debuffs here. I instantly purgatory, because that's how much damage it does. So luckily I had a cheat death on me, and we got saved from that. Now this next part is going to be the mini boss. This is going to be Blightweaver. Now all Blightweaver's going to do is just continuously do a cast on the tank, which is Pestilence Bolt, and then it's going to do an AoE on the ground, where you just need to move it out of its AoE. It's a very easy thing to dodge, but you want to make sure as a tank, this is it's a bit weird to interact here. So you got the bombs almost coming off, but you don't want to move or anything else out of it, because you want to make sure it hits and the mini boss. So you need to kind of edge yourself through, or just take the hit, honestly. As a tank, as long as you're using a defensive here, you can survive it. But as you can see, I want to make sure they're both in it. Now, our DH unfortunately stands in it, so he dies. Now, Blightweaver's going to die, and we're going to have 2 more Plague Borers come in. If you didn't notice what happened before that, we'll just quickly show you. So, as we're going through, I'm here. Our monk has ran down the stairs and to the left. Now there's a pack of 1 Slime Claw and 2 Plague Binders on the left-hand side. What the healer is going to do, or a ranged DPS, is they're going to run down here while these first 2 Plague Borers are spawning. They're going to pull those 3 and run all the way back to here. Now what's going to happen is they're going to run and they're going to line of sight up on here. Now you need to make sure everything's up on this, everyone's up on this platform, because as soon as you pass that on and start going down the stairs, these Plague Binders are going to start casting. And then you're going to have to use Death Grips and Interrupts to get them back in. So I'm going to hold these 2, I'm going to Mass Grip all of them together so they're all stacked up. And then these next 2 Plague Borers are going to be used to kill the rest of these mobs. Now this saves you a lot of time, because you don't have to go to the left-hand side anymore and kill a bunch of another pack. So this is going to explode, it's going to kill those. But as you can see, that Slime Claw moved down the stairs. And because that platform and these stairs are completely different axes, that Slime Claw didn't get hit. So only the Plague Binders got hit. So now we have to focus on killing the 1 Slime Claw. Unfortunate, happens more often than you think. So we're going to make sure we kill that Slime Claw. We're going to go down here, get a res on our DH, and we're going to run straight through the middle as the boss is jumping around on the platforms, and go to the back right here. Now we got the Plague Binder and the Spine Breaker. You guys know exactly what these 2 mobs do. We're going to make sure that they're not anywhere near where the boss is going to spawn. Again, face the frontal away from everyone else. Dodge the spines on the ground. Interrupt the Pestilence Bolt, and don't let anyone get gripped with the root from the Plague Binder. Spine Breaker, when it dies, is going to pop those 5 slimes on the ground as well. Tank just runs over them with AMS, or some sort of defensive, or you get someone with an immunity to run over them as well. Trust me, they do a lot of damage. Do not run over them as a DPS if you know you can't survive. It is not going to end well. Now we got 3 minutes left on our lust. We're going to use our lust on one of the congealed, not the congealed, sorry, one of the plague, one of the bomb slimes, sorry, on one of the phases in this boss coming up. So we're going to run over here. Now this is awesome. You got a congealed slime and a pestilent slime. Now the congealed slime again is going to give you, put a massive defensive on everything around it except for other slimes. So you're going to see in this pool, the congealed slime and the pestilent slime are both going to be taking a lot more damage than the plague binder that's also in this pool. You want to make sure you're pulling these mobs away from where the boss spawns, as you can see where the boss is jumping. Make sure they're not in contact anywhere near it, otherwise the boss is going to pull and it's going to be a bad time. Now you're definitely going to focus the congealed here, and you're going to start interrupting the viral globs, which is the most important thing. Pestilence Bolt, if it goes off, it doesn't matter, it's just hitting the tank. And you need to make sure you're interrupting the gripping again. The congealed slimes jump, you need to make sure you stun, as always. Now the pestilent slime, you want to make sure it dies in a position where you can stack the boss on it so everyone gets the buff as well and double dips on the buff. And when the Pestilent Slime dies and the Congealed Slime dies, make sure your designated Necrolord is using Fleshcraft to grab both of them. Grab both the buffs. Now, Ickus is going to come in. This is the second boss of the instance. We're all going to be near the red slime and stack on it when we want to get our haste buff. Now, Ickus is going to use an ability called Slime Injection. As a Blood DK, you can AMS this ability. It negates the need to dispel the tank from the healer and will not drop a mob. Now, if you get the if you don't use AMS, you'll get a 1 minute debuff here, which ticks for quite a lot of damage, and the initial hit actually hits you for quite a lot. So make sure you're using some sort of defensive to mitigate that. Now, when it gets dispelled, it's going to spawn. As you saw that little green circle there, a little green swirl there, it's going to spawn an erupting ooze. Now, it has a 10-second cast time, and the cast is erupt. You need to just run over it. Now, recently it has been buffed tremendously in damage that happens applies to whoever runs over it. So when you're running over it, make sure the tank is running over it, and if you are going to run over it as a DPS or a healer, make sure you're using some sort of big defensive, because it does hurt a lot. Now, you might ask, what happens if the cast goes off? Like, why is it important to run over it? So what happens when the cast goes off is the next bomb ad that spawns in this phase is gonna explode, and the cast of the bomb is gonna be 2 times faster than it originally would be, or even faster than that. Pretty much essentially not allowing you to kill the bomb in time, and then if the bomb explodes from the main slime in that intermission phase, or in that next phase, sorry, your whole group is going to die immediately. You cannot let the bomb go off. It's pretty much a DPS race on that bomb. So you're gonna see what happens. We're gonna run over this ooze, make sure it doesn't go off. Now the boss is going to run away at 66% and 33%. It's gonna jump to a new platform. So right now 66%. It's gonna start jumping to the next platform. Now this part is the most important part of the boss fight. It's going to summon a bomb ad that you need everyone to start killing, which is called a Plague Bomb, Virulent Explosion. It's got a 30-second timer there. Now the boss is also going to summon a Congealed Slime. Now in this, ideally, with this setup, you're going to have the Monk Ring of Peace the Congealed Slime away, make sure there's no debuffs or damage over time spells or abilities on the Congealed Slime, and then the Monk is going to CC it with a Paralysis. The Hunter is going to take over the CC with a Hunter Trap, and then the Monk's going to do the exact same thing on the next platform. So we're going to see a Ring of Peace there. It's going to get the Congealed Slime gets CC'd with Paralysis. The boss is going to start jumping around with this. There's going to be a massive swirl on the ground. The easiest way to avoid this, is when the boss jumps down, it's going to put a north, south, east, and west slime path, and if you get hit by it, it's going to chunk you for quite a lot. All you need to do to avoid this is look at how the boss is, where the boss is facing, and just don't be in front, behind it, or side to side. Just be in its diagonal direction, and if you're right next to it and you're on its diagonal direction, you won't get hit at all. So you'll be able to do damage as well. Now, as you can see there, if you just missed it, it's going to jump here, and then if the tank is far away from the boss, it's going to start casting an ability called Burning Strain. Now it's just going to keep casting this ability until it gets interrupted or the tank goes near the boss. This hurts a lot and puts a debuff on a random player. Just be near the boss at all times. So I interrupt it. We make sure we kill the Plague Bomb. That Congealed's going to be a CC the entire time. Now, you may ask why the Congealed being CC is so important. One, it's extra damage you could be doing to the boss rather than doing on an ad. And again, the Congealed, like we explained before, puts a debuff on everything around it and minimizes the damage that it takes by 90+%. Now, this slime is not supposed to affect other slimes, but during this boss, this slime will affect the Plague Bomb. because technically it doesn't count it as another slime. I'm not sure if that was intended, but it's a part of the boss mechanic, so you don't want this congealed slime near the boss or near the bomb, otherwise the amount of damage that's going to be done to either of those main essential targets are going to be slim to none and you will die. So we're going to run over the ooze again. We're going to get Ickus down to 33%. And then it's going to phase, and we're just going to rinse and repeat the exact same thing that we did on this platform on another platform. As you see, the hunter trap goes out. It sees it. And once again, Plague Bomb comes out. Ring of Peace, Paralysis, and dodge the abilities from the boss. Now, you definitely don't want to greed this part. You just want to make sure you survive when it does the jump. It usually does 3 jumps. Sometimes it bugs out and does 2. I interrupt the boss's mechanic, so it comes into the bomb, and then we just kill the boss from there. Very simple. And that is pretty much Dr. Ickus, which is the second boss. Very, very simple stuff. Now, as we kill the boss, we're going to go up the stairs, down to the next area. As I see, we all stood on that because we all thought that the boss was going to die and only had 1% health. That wasn't very good. Luckily, we didn't die from that. So we're going to mount up, go onto the stairs, go down the stairs on the other side, and this is going to be a relatively big pull here. There's a lot of things that you need to realize, and a lot of things you need to do here. So, as you can see, my nameplate, my threat plates are showing me that these slimes, there's one here, there's another one here, there's another one here. There's 3 slimes. They all need to be purged. Otherwise, they're going to put that poison on the ground. And if they put it on the ground where the tentacle is, it's going to be really annoying because you're going to be wanting to kill that tentacle. Otherwise, it's going to grab someone. And if your melee can't stand in there because there's poison on the ground, it's not a good time. So I'm going to grab these 2 mobs in front. There's a tentacle here. I'm going to grab this defender here. And I'm going to grab this defender here. Now, the only new mob in here are the defenders right now. The defenders are going to cast something called Bulwark. Now, it's a massive shield, as you can see coming up now. That's going to be put on the ground. That Bulwark, that shield needs to be stunned immediately. Otherwise, it is going to do pretty much the same thing the congealed slime does and just minimize the amount of damage anything around it takes it by a lot. It pretty much nullifies any damage you do. So you need to make sure that you're stunning it immediately, or gripping it, or fearing it, or displacing it somehow. So we kill all of those. Defenders are dying. We got here. As you can see, someone didn't purge. And now here is a perfect example of what happens and what you should not be doing. Is when a slime dies and you haven't purged it, it will spawn that poison on the ground. And we're trying to kill this tentacle, but as you can see, it's growing and we can't go near the tentacle. So now the tentacle is going to just start slapping the nearby target. We all have to stand in here and try to beat around the poison puddle. As you can see, the poison puddle's hitting pretty hard. But luckily we have so is pretty much healing everything else. So that was just lucky we got there. We're going to pull this next mob in this little platform here. Now you've got the defender here again. You've got Venom Fang that gets summoned by the venomous sniper. You need to interrupt that cast when it does it again. The sniper's just going to randomly shoot random people. There's nothing you can do about that. And then this massive decaying giant is going to cast something called Creepy Crawlers. You just need to make sure you interrupt that. Otherwise it's going to spawn a bunch of spiders on the ground. And it's just extra mobs you don't need to deal with. Periodically, the giant is going to put these puddles on the ground. Just don't stand in the puddles. Very, very simple. And once the giant dies, the puddles will disappear. Just be careful. Don't get hit by those swirls. So the puddles disappear as the giant dies, and we kill everything else. Perfect. Now, this is where a blood decay is very, very, very strong. Now, you can be a blood decay or a DPS DK, but blood decay is more prevalent nowadays. You can take control of one of these defenders and use it by using Control Undead to mitigate damage done on the 3rd boss and the 4th boss by 10% by using the Bulwark to your advantage. Now, I don't think I display it in this key because it's only a 21. There's not really any need to do it. But on a high key like a 27 Tyrannical or a 28 or something like that, you can use it and place it in a position where you can mitigate the damage done by certain abilities like the Rain on the last boss or the AoE stun on the third boss by 10%. Now you're going to be wondering why it's only 10% when it does a 99% defensive to everything around it when it's not taken by a DK, but that's just how it is. When you control Undead, the Defender, you won't get 99% reduction, you only get a base of 10% reduction, which is unfortunate, but it does help incredibly at the higher keys when you're trying to save classes like a Hunter, which is arguably one of the weakest defensively capable classes in the game, besides, you know, Feign Death, which technically isn't a hard defensive. It's just a threat drop. All they really have is a pet that can help them defensive on a long cooldown, and then Turtle, and that's about it. As are hard defensives. So now we go into this next pull. You've got an ambusher. Now, as you saw before in the last pull, the ambushes will start summoning these stealthlings. These stealthlings will cast ambush, and you need to AoE stun, AoE fear, AoE knockback, something. You need to stop their cast. If that cast goes off, they are killing probably 1 to 3 people in your group immediately, because they're just going to jump to random targets and do massive damage. So someone needs to be stopping these ambushes immediately. Again, Sniper's going to be shooting random people and summoning a Venom Fang. Defender's going to be bullwalking. You need to make sure you stop all that. That is basic stuff there. Then we're going to pull the one on the other side as well. Same mobs, Ambusher, Bulwark, Sniper, Stealthlings coming out, CC them. Exact same pack on left to right. Nothing different. Now, as we kill these, we're going to move into the third boss of the instance, which is Domina Venomblade. Now, Domina Venomblade, very simple boss, honestly. Puts a debuff on the tank, you just have to heal through it, or get it dispelled by the healer, which is that ability right there. It's going to put a Shadow Ambush. This is the ability I said you could use the Defender to help mitigate. You just need to be able to run out of the group. Not too far, but you need to make sure this purple circle doesn't hit anyone else in the group. Otherwise, it's going to do damage and stun them as well. Use a defensive every time this happens. Otherwise, it's going to take a solid amount of damage. And at a higher key, will one-shot you. The main thing here is you need to be sticking to someone else. If you're out by yourself for too long, you end up getting wrapped in webbing. And you'll get stunned and people have to run to you and get you out, which is just extremely annoying in this boss fight. So make sure you're standing next to someone at all times. You can be in range, but as long as there's another range, and you can be in melee as long as there's another melee. Very simple stuff here. Don't be out too long, otherwise you get stunned. It's going to summon assassins around the area. This whole platform, it's going to summon 4 assassins. Now the assassins you can see are going to be in the middle of a massive web patch on the ground. Here, I stay still. You usually, with this group comp, you're going to get your monk to run around and spinning crane kick them all back in, or you're going to get a DH and they can run around with Immolation Aura, or you can get your hunter to flare trap one of them. All that stuff works in this comp specifically. You can get Arcane Mage to Arcane Explosion, everything. Lots of different abilities that you can use. Any type of AoE that can help break them out quickly is more beneficial than having the tank run around and grabbing them individually and moving the boss the whole time, because that is extremely annoying for everyone. So, same thing, person with the purple circle is going to run out. Cytotoxic Slash, is going to be applied to the tank. Just make sure you dispel it and get rid of it. It's just a little bit of damage over time. Nothing too bad to worry about. And then I'm going to go in there, blood boil these assassins out. Everyone else is going to run around and grab the rest of them. Purple circle again. Same thing. Very simple. Bring the ads in, kill the ads. Purple circle, leave. Stand next to someone at all times. Dispel the debuff on the tank. Done. So that boss is extremely simple to understand. Now we're going to finish the boss. I'm going to go through. We're going to jump down here. Now, as we're jumping down, these mobs hurt a lot. These are extremely painful mobs, so as a tank, you just want to get your aggro and run. Do not try to face tank these. You will die eventually. Trust me, they are not fun to tank. Unless you're a DK, you can pretty much just heal anything. But you want to be very careful with these mobs. So you're going to kill these two over here. You're going to run down here. You're going to grab Ickus. Now, Ickus Baleflesh is the next mini-boss. Now, this boss is going to every percentage, I think 66% and 33%, it's going to teleport to another patch of Devoteds. As you can see, there's two patches of Devoteds, packs of Devoteds at the back over there, and there's a pack of Devoteds in the front. Now, if you've pulled all of them, it's just going to spawn at a different location of a random mob that's still alive. If there's no other mobs alive, Ickus will just port away and then port back to where it was originally, where it was before it ported away. The way we do this is we just keep Ickus in one pat, and then when it moves to another location, we just follow Ickus. There's not really any point just pulling everything together because you can't really AoE everything, or most classes can't really. They AoE in a small vicinity. So just focus on killing Ickus rather than killing everything else. I know DPS are going to want to pad damage and all that, but focus on killing the mini-boss. It's the quickest way to finish this area. You don't need to pad damage here, even though you want to. Because Ickus is the one that's going to be the last to die anyway. You want to make sure it's dying as quick as possible. So I'm going to pull this, pop everything. As you can see, I Purgatorio immediately because I'm standing in there like an ape. Now we're going to kill all of these mobs. Ickus is going to get to 66% and then Ghost Step away to another pack. It's going to choose the left-hand pack here. We're going to go into the left-hand pack and we're going to kill Ickus again down to 33%, and then it's going to go into the right-hand pack. Is what it should do. Now we get here. Ickus is going to go down to 33%. Or Ickus, whatever you want to call it. And then we're going to kill Ickus over here with the Devoteds here. Very clean, because it just ports from different packs to packs, so you can just AoE, 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 done. Now, in order to move this mob as well, the tank needs to be relatively close to the mob, and you need to be able to interrupt it as well. If you're too far away and you're just interrupting it, the mob won't move. So if you want to know how to move it, if it's in a bad position, if it's going to be next to the boss spawn, or you just want to move it closer up here, then you just need to make sure the tank is close enough to stutter step it away. Now we're going to walk up here. We got 98.3%. So these all slimes give you 1%. You're going to grab this slime and you're going to grab this congealed. You're not going to pull the pestilence yet because you don't want to kill it yet. So you're going to get the congealed. Make sure you're stunning the congealed when it does its cast. Make sure you're interrupting the rot marrow when it does its cast. And make sure you're purging the rot marrow so it doesn't drop the shit on the ground. You're going to kill these two. One, they're almost dead. You're going to pull the pestilence slime. You're going to interrupt the viral from the pestilence slime as well. You're going to make sure you keep dragging it to the boss. You're going to drag it all the way to the boss's hitbox, and then you're going to kill it there, so you can utilize the haste buff from the mob the entire duration of the boss fight. Now, it does last a finite time, so if the boss fight ends up extending for a long period of time, if you're at a higher key level or a tyrannical, the mob will probably not be there, or the remnants of the mob won't be there for the third phase. Now, you want to make sure you keep kicking this mob. Now, I run a bit too far since it's just me and the hunter. That's the only ones that have a kick available, so we both run away from it, which was pretty funny. But, yeah, we want to make sure that we keep moving it along. And make sure you don't kill it outside of its hitbox, otherwise people won't be able to utilize it, especially melee. You want to make sure you get an interrupt on it last. I grip it over. We pull the boss. And this is going to be the last boss, Margrave Stradama. We get here. And it's going to summon a mob called a Malignant Spawn. Now, this boss is extremely difficult for healers. There's a lot going on. So you need to make sure that the healer is focused up and you guys aren't taking extra damage here. It's going to do a bunch of abilities. The spawn needs to die as soon as possible because the spawns are going to be periodically spawning throughout the fight until Margrave goes down and the tentacles spawn around and you have to dodge the tentacles. Now, this is a bit of a rough patch here. If doesn't die immediately, is going to do the slam where the tank is positioned, as well as the spawn doing the slam where the tank is positioned. You cannot stand in, and you don't need to stand in the tank soak from the Malignant Spawn as a DPS or a healer. Do not stand with the tank. It is never a good idea. You will die. 100%. It is unnecessary damage. You only need one person to soak the slam, If you don't soak the slam, the group wipes, pretty much. Everyone gets hit with the ability. If you soak the slam, only the person soaking will get a hit, so make sure the tank is standing there. Now, as you can see, is about to slam as well. I'm probably going to AMS it, because you can AMS soak the slam and it prevents the stun from happening. Or as a tank, you can IBF it as well. As a DK, sorry. IBF it or AMS it. Either works. Now, the Malignant Spawn is dead. It's going to... Now, as you saw just then, there was an ability that just came out called Infectious Rain. Now, the Infectious Rain is the main ability from the boss. It's going to periodically put a stack of Infectious Rain on everyone in the area, going up to 4 stacks. Now, the higher the stacks go, the more damage over time you're going to take, obviously. The way to mitigate this is by using pretty much any kind of magic reduction ability or magic immunity. For me, I've got AMS. I can pop AMZ here if the group needs it. We can pop Darkness, a bunch of other things. And we have Revival as well for later on if we need, if we're in a bit of a sticky situation. Now the tentacles are going to spawn as well. You need to make sure you dodge them. As you can see, they spawn, they go yellow, they slam. You need to make sure you're close to the boss, because it's easier to dodge if you're closer to the boss. But you can't step into the puddle where the boss is, otherwise you will pretty much die immediately. So you need to make sure you're just on the edge of the puddle, but the closer you are to that puddle, the easier it is to dodge. The further away, the less time you have, because it covers more ground. It makes it a little bit easier to dodge there. So we kill the spawn. Now, Margrave will again go down at 66% and 33% respectively to the next phases, just like the other boss. Sorry, just changing the music here, guys. So this is pretty much the dodging phase, the intermission. So it's gonna spawn a bunch of tentacles in different orders. So they could be going around clockwise in the room. They could be going counterclockwise. They could be spawning 3 at a time, and then the rest of them spawn later. But pretty much where the tentacles weren't spawning beforehand are gonna spawn after these tentacles come down. So as soon as you see the first tentacle slam on the ground, just go to where they slammed after they've done it, and then you can avoid the rest of the ones that are spawning afterwards. They're going to spawn 3 Devoteds, Plaguefall Devoteds as well, which are the mobs you fought before doing this boss, which was just standing there near the mini-boss beforehand. So just make sure you're not too close to them as a tank, because they do hit quite hard, and you have aggro on them especially. Otherwise, if someone else has aggro on them, they're going to get hurt very quickly. Make sure the DPS are focusing on these Devoteds, because you don't need them up. There's nothing else to do except for dodging in that phase, so you might as well kill something. We're going to utilize the pull here on phase 2 for the haste buff as like a mini lust. So we're going to lust the last phase because we just want to smash out the last phase and kill the boss. So spawn's going to spawn again. Now, if you don't kill this spawn fast enough, what ends up happening is you have not only one spawn, but another spawn in another portion of the puddle, or near another portion of the puddle. And what happens is there's going to be a tank slam that you need to soak, and then another tank slam that you need to soak. And if they don't sync, if they sync up, you can't be in 2 places at once, so someone else needs to soak it, and they most likely will die because they don't have the mitigation of a tank. Or if someone doesn't soak it, the group wipes. So you need to make sure these spawns are dying in a timely fashion as well. Now, you can beat the timer, essentially, by just making sure you phase the boss to 33% as soon as possible. Infectious Rain's going to come down as well. We're going to make sure that we mitigate as much as possible here. Getting to the boss to 33% before the next spawn comes up, and perfect. The next spawn was about to come up, but we did phase the boss, so we don't have to deal with it again. Now, again, same thing, rinse and repeat. Dodge the tentacles, get the Devoteds, pull them in, get aggro on them, kill them as soon as possible so you can move on and lust the boss and finish the dungeon. Now, this is a relatively clean run for a 2 chest 21. The only problems were, you know, some people dying to frontals and some ground mechanics, but storming is extremely annoying for melee, so I don't blame them sometimes. It is a bit of annoying affix to deal with. So we pop Darkness there to help out. I pop AMZ as well to help out. And then with these, as you can see, they're going clockwise around as tentacles. Just find the first one that spawned and stand away from where the first one spawned. So you're pretty much essentially just following where they're going now. So then you can dodge them all. It's pretty easy. Find the first one, go to the right or the left of it, depending on which way it's going, counterclockwise or clockwise, and then just follow the direction it's slamming in. And there you go. Plaguefall. One of the easiest, if not the easiest dungeons out there. If done correctly, obviously. Extremely fast dungeon if you utilize those Plague Borers at the beginning, like I said, during the Gauntlet. And you're making sure you're doing these little tips and tricks to make things a little bit easier during your life in these dungeons. But thank you very much for watching, everybody. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you like the content. Please let me know what I can do to improve my videos. I know I need to learn editing and all that. And so I don't have to do this in one take and stutter and forget things and look like I'm an idiot. But hopefully you had some good information and you learned something through these videos. And the next video, I'm pretty sure, will be a Spires of Ascension, if I'm not mistaken. And that will be up in the next few days. But thank you very much for all the support. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.